In a second now. It's funny how you just hit record and then it takes forever to start. I don't know why that happens. What if it's already recording and all of this is getting recorded? I should probably.
It's recorded.
It is. Oh, yeah, I think it is.
Oh,
Maybe.
now it is. All right. Welcome everyone to Angler South Asia. It's Wednesday. It's August. What is time? I don't know. Anyways, we have Valentine, and we're so excited for your dog. The floor is all yours, Valentine. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for having me. So I'll just go straight and share my slides.
Yay!
So let me know when you can see.
Well, we can see it.
Okay, great. I know Bonnie is going to be shocked a little when she sees this.
I
But
love it.
anyway, okay, that's cool. So, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Valentine Awe, and I work as an engineering enterprise product cluster lead at a fintech company here in Nigeria called Global Accelerex. Um, Also, I'm the Angular Africa host here at Angular Nation, and I'm also an Angular architect. Thanks to Bonnie for giving me that title. I mean, it was after I took the Angular architect training course that I could have the confidence to say, yeah, I'm an Angular architect, and no one is going to stop me on the road and say, hey, who made you an Angular architect? So thanks to Bonnie for that. And before I jump
Yeah, that's cool. Love it.
and before I jump into the main conversation, I really want to especially say thank you to Bonnie, and that's simply because she's the brain behind all this, right? Apart from the platform that I am using to do this presentation, she is the reason why I have the confidence or the courage to stand in your presence today virtually to present this talk. And really, thank you very much, Bonnie. I really appreciate. Thank you.
I love
So,
all of you.
thank you. So, let's just jump straight into the main stuff. So, first thing that we'll be looking at today is the ng template, and I'm very sure almost everybody here knows about ng template, and you've probably used ng template and you've heard about cool stuff around ng template. And for those that attended the DOM manipulation course, I'm very sure that you've seen this as well. And I think I picked some very interesting stuff because I took that course myself. And first of all, the ng template is represent an Angular template. Is basic. And whenever we use any of our structural directives that we already know, like the ng if, the ng for, and the ng switch in our Angular application, Angular automatically wraps the host element in which we are using this structural directive inside an ng template. And we'll see what that's look like, what it looks like in a bit. Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we see the ng template slide. Yep.
Okay, good. So basically, like I said, whenever you use the any structural directive, Angular, injects the host element of that structural directive inside an ng template. And if you can see, you see that we have ng if there is no food, then we're going to have, you have to stay hungry. And now what happens under the hood is that Angular picks this old div, which is the host element, and then injects it inside the ng template. And this is what we have under the hood. And the good thing about this is that this does not affect the DOM at any point in time because Angular comments the ng template out of the DOM. And we'll see that shortly as well. So basically, this is what it looks like. So when you can see this green comment here, that is the ng template that Angular has commented out. And you see that our DOM is as clean as it ought to be without any extra elements So that is it. And that's quite very interesting. But sometimes, because you know that what Angular does behind the scene, that is by putting a host element inside of the ng template, you might want to try the same thing too as well, and it is not going to work. And this is a simple reason why it's not going to work. So if you notice here, we've tried to play Angular by putting the structural directive directly into the ng template. And then once we do that, remember what we said earlier, that what Angular does is that it picks the host element that is housing the structural directive and then inserts it into what? The ng template. So this is what happens. So it has picked the ng template and then inserted it into another ng template. And what we also said is that whenever Angular sees the ng template, it comments it out because it doesn't, display it as a valid element in our DOM. So this is what happens if you try to play Angular. Although what you can do to actually achieve this, if you want to write the ng template in your code, for your structure, as your structural directive, you can simply do the same conversion here like we have. You can write this plain ng if. This is not supposed to be a capital F. That's a typo. So you can write this and it's going to work very well. But really, there's no usefulness to to do that, because Angular does that under the hood for us. So there are many other ways in which you can use the ng template as well. And one of them is the if-else with ng if. So if you notice in the first example here, we have, if there's no food, then we're going to display make food. And then we have a template. Remember what we said, that ng template is just like a house to your regular template. So now, if there's no food, we want this template to make foods to be displayed in the template. So what that happens is that Angular is going to look, whatever variable that food is, if it's 4C, we're going to pick up this template, which is the make food, and then display. And what you're going to see will be frying some eggs. So we can use that. We're using this reference to, in our else statement, although there's supposed to be like, what's it called? A quotation mark there. Pardon that. So we also have the if then else example, and same thing with what we have here, but in this case we're going to have like two templates, which is cook or stay hungry. So what happens is that Angular is going to check if there's no food, it's going to display the first template, which is the cook. Else is going to display the stay hungry. So with this, we can dynamically display our template to our users. So like I said before, there's supposed to be some quotations here. I guess I missed that out. But when we are looking at our live our code, we're going to see the actual implementation of that. I hope that is clear.
Yep.
Okay, good. Thank you. So that is for ng template, and that is how we can use the ng template. Now let's move to the ng container. If you can see my screen very well, I'm pretty sure that once in our learning, in learning Angular, we've probably come across this this error, which says you can't have multiple template bindings on one element. So has anyone seen this before?
Yeah, I keep forgetting that you can't do that until I get the error and like, oh, that's right, bummer.
Exactly. So I used to get this a lot. And the first solution that comes to my mind whenever I do something like this and I get this complaint or error from Angular, I simply implement it like this. So because Angular has told me that I can't have two structural directives in one element, I just say, oh, I think I'm a smart guy. Let me create another separate div and then do like some kind of nesting, which is fine. It works pretty well. It fixes the error, I mean. So, but when you look at your DOM, this is what you're going to get. You will see that we have some redundant div elements that's not being used. So if you see very well, we have the actual element div that is holding the names Val, Oni, and Dagger. But then we have another extra div which is not doing anything. And what that means is that we're going to have, when we want to style this div, this val div or this only div, we're going to have some kind of nested styling because we have some redundant divs which are not useful. And if for some reasons you have more stuffs that you want to iterate through, you're going to have like nested ng4, which is not, of course, a good practice, but that is going to create multiple redundant elements in your DOM tree, and that makes it a little messy. So that is what the ng container does for us. The ng container is a grouping element that does not interfere with the layouts and style of our application. First, it helps to remove redundant elements, like we saw in our previous slide where we have a lot of redundant divs. And then it helps us to remove invalid HTML standards. So if you notice from our previous example, where we had the div elements that had the structural directive ng4, now we now have the ng container instead. And if you look at your right, you see that we have a more cleaner tree compared to what we had before. So you see how messy this looks, and then see how clean this looks. And now talking about messy, that reminds me of the messy slow child component and all that I got from Bonnie's training. So that's what we have here. So with this ng container, you will notice that we have a more cleaner DOM tree, and then we just have our divs, and this makes styling really easy for us. And when it comes to invalid HTML standard, sometimes you see people writing conditional statements inside of a list. Example, when I make conditional statements, I'm referring to the structural directives like ng-ifs. You see some people having a list and then writing a span or a paragraph inside a list to say ng-if or whatever it is. And now that is invalid HTML. But because the browser is smart and browser wants to always keep things clean, it ignores those kind of invalid HTML. What we can still use the ng container for is to replace whatever elements like a span that we would use in that kind of a situation with the ng container. So the ng container will also help eliminate that invalid statement, because Angular does not display that in our DOM, and it does not interfere with the layout of our application. I hope that makes sense.
It does, yeah. I know the IDE gives you a squiggly that this is invalid HTML, but the browser doesn't give you an error. So
Exactly.
people tend to ignore it.
Exactly. So now the next thing is the ng content. And this is used to create configurable components. And I'm sure we've heard of content projection a lot, and I'm sure most of us, we have used this ng content. So basically we're just going to be seeing what it does and how we can use it and utilize its power. So here is a typical example. We have something called the app banner here. So this is like a banner that we have a style for. If you can see, there's some inline styling. It has a background color of gray and a color of green. And then we want to use this banner across all our applications, but we do not know what we need to display in that banner. And we want to expose these components to other aspects of our application so that they can pass in their own value. And so that is where the ng content comes into play. So we see here, after writing our style, we placed in an ng content tag here, so that whenever you want to use the banner, you're going to get the same styling, the background color of gray, the color of green, and then we're going to display whatever content that you project inside of this ng content. So if you see from the app.ts, you notice that we are using the tag app banner, and then we are passing in, I can reuse this banner anywhere and insert different content. So whenever we use this app banner, insert anything, that content or that thing that we have inserted gets projected with the same style from our app banner. But there's a problem somehow. Why this works perfectly fine and it's cool, it's great. What if we have different sections for our banner? What if we want to have like a header, like a body, and like a footer for our banner? will Angular be able to know that, oh, I'm going to position whatever content you project into me into the head? Will Angular be smart enough to know what needs to go to the body and what needs to go to the footer? Something like this. Now we have a modal which has like a header at the beginning of greatness. It has a body, a man has the name, and then it has a footer which says something good is about to happen. Now this is really cool because this modal is wrapped into like an ng content like we spoke about earlier, but then we are passing in the header, the body, and the footer. And what makes this possible is what the ng content provides to us, which is the select attribute. So this is it. Now, because Angular will not be able to know by default the place or the position to place whatever content we project into it, it provides us, the ng content provides us with a select attribute, which can then allow us decide the type of selectors that we need to use. So a typical example here, this is our modal that we showed. This is the modal, and this is the code for that modal. Now you will notice that we have the ng content here. We have another ng content here in the body. We have another ng content in the footer. So now, for Angular to know that, hey, if you pass anything into me, I'm going to place it in the header. Angular looks for this selector and say, okay, it's using the class head. And then I'm going to just pick that and position it here because this is where I have my select attribute. If it sees anything that has a class body, it's going to take that and pass it into this place as well. And if it sees any class that has a foot, it's going to place the foot inside of this place. So this is what happens. So whenever we want to use this R modal, let's say we call it the app content or app customer, we just pass in the class of head, the class of body, and the class of footer. So automatically, these are, our app customer component knows where to place this the beginning of greatness. It knows where to place this a man has no name. Then knows where to place this something good is about to happen because it's using the select to identify that. I hope that is clear. But then we have a little problem with this. What happens if we do not pass in a foot? What happens if we do not pass in a body? What is going to happen? That means our component is going to really look very ugly, or our reusable modal is going to look ugly. Now we have it. It's cool, fine, because you have projected everything inside of it. But if we decide to omit any of these things, it becomes messy, and that is where the ng template outlet, which we'll be looking at next, comes into play. The ng template outlet. The ng template outlet is quite very useful in creating reusable components, and it solves one of the major problem we have with the ng content, which is setting default contents to be projected when they are not projected. So we're just going to go straight and look at the examples. So here, let's imagine this line of code as what we had with our reusable modal. So if you notice now, we have the header and then we have the body. Okay, we don't have a footer for this, which is fine. But now we are saying that these are reusable component is going to be expecting a template. If you see below here, we have input header and then we have input body. So it's going to be expecting that value. And when it gets that value, it's going to project the value inside this our wrapper here. But then if we don't have that header provided, and if we don't have that body provided, it is then going to use a default template, which is a default header, and then also use a default body template. So this solves the problem of not having a default template for when you are using the ng content. So I'm going to see an example where we use this ng template to project default content or different default templates. So also, like we said again, you can use this to display a template in a multiple section of your application. Say if you have a typical example is when you have like banners, when you sell stuff, so where you just want to project your icon or anything. You can just create a single template and then use the ng template outlet to project that in multiple, places in your screen. So why is that for our magical directives? Let's now go to to see how they truly works. But before before I start sharing my code, I would like to ask if if there are questions or if there's anything you want me to explain before we look at the code.
I don't think so. I think everyone's excited to see the code for this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're doing
So-
such a good job.
Thank you, Bunny. Just gonna close this. And so, first of all, let me show you this. Okay, great. So basically, we have a model. This is like the sample model that I shared with you in the presentation. So we have a model that that projects that allows you to project contents to it. So we can pass anything. Currently, here we are passing a header of payment notification. This is a confirmation of your payment as the body, and click to print receipt. So now, how did we do that? So if we go back to our code, if we go to our code, we have in the app.html, we have this here. We have the app modal view. If you take a look at our app modal view, see what we are just doing. We are passing the class of head, and then we are passing in a paragraph and then a div. So remember I said before, the select attributes in ng content gives us that ability to project content using different selectors. So if you notice here, we have used head as a class, and then here we didn't use any class, we didn't use any other type of attribute. We used the direct element p to project the body, and also here we use the class. So now if we take a look at what this our app modal view looks like, you're going to see that here we have the select and it's saying, oh, I'm expecting a head. And then it's going to say that here I'm expecting a paragraph. So whenever I see a paragraph, it automatically knows that I am going to project the paragraphs into the space, into this body, and also for the footer as well. Isn't that cool, guys? So that's the whole concept of content projection. So, but there's a problem, that the problem I raised, what if I decide not to pass in a footer? So kindly note that here we have everything that we are projecting. Okay, I think let me just change it to say salary notification. So you see that salary notif, and then you go there, you're going to see salary notif, and that's just it. I can decide to say, okay, in our specification, I want to make this like an ID, and so I'll just come here and ensure that I use an ID. So once I do this, I'm gonna be smart enough to know that, oh, this is where to project that. So these are different selectors that you can use, which makes it fun. But the problem is if I do not project a header, for example, maybe by mistake, or maybe by mistake. So this is what we are going to get. And this is very, very messy. That means that we are going to not have a default content to project. And this is where the ng template outlet comes into play. So let's take this back to normal here, and then go to, yes, so everything is normal. So let's go back to how our ng template outlet helps solves that problem. So first of all, we are doing some little magic here. We have a template here. We are saying, okay, we have a button here which determine the active page, which is this is our header and all that. And then this is our container that helps to project the content of whatever we want to project. So now we have active page, which you can set, and then if there's no active page, we have a default page, which is the books. And that's why when I save this file, you're going to see that the default page is like a list of books, a table of books. So now If you look at the table of books, we have a wrapper here, which is the app books. So let's go to the app books, page view. Yep. So this is what the app books looks like. If you notice here, we just have everything wrapped in ng templates. And remember what we said, ng templates does not get displayed on your screen by default. So this is what we have here as ng templates. And then we have a reference. This is a card view, and this is a table view. And in order to display any of these table views, we are using what we call the app books view, which accepts a template name. So which accepts a template name. So if we look at the app books view, we have the views here and books view. You see that what it does, that it's using a template outlet. So what this is looking at is going to say, if there is a books template that is being passed into me, I am going to use the books template. But if there's no books template, then I'm going to present a default books. Now remember, this is the issue we had with the what's it called, the ng content, where we were not able to provide a default value to share. So now this whole application, this books view, is expecting a template to be passed into it, which is the books template here in our component file. But if it doesn't see that books template, it's going to display a default value to us. So let's see how that works. So first of all, if you can see the screen, you see that we have a template, which is a table, which is being displayed. Now we are trying to, we are going to simulate not passing in a template to our books view and see what happens. So the way to do that is to go to, yes. So this is where we project passing the template, which is the table view. And this is the template which we pass by default. Anyway, before we do that, let me show you what this looks like, the card view looks like. So if we pass in the card view with the app view template, we're going to have like a card. Okay. So now, what if we don't pass anything at all? What if we decide not to pass anything, like we had with the ng content? We decide not to pass anything at all. Yeah, we still get data. Notice the difference in style with when we're passing something. So we have, in fact, we have different content. We have different books from what we had before. So in this way, if you are using these app books view in any part of your application and you want the default values to be used, you can just, you know, do what we did here, set a default template, default books template, and say whenever there's no book, you just need to project the default books. And that's what we have here. And if you notice the default books we have, we check the components, you're going to see that we have special books as well. The young shall grow. Okay, I think you're projecting. Okay, great. I think we'll come to this later. So we are able to still project our content without having a template passed to it. So that solves that problem we had with the ng content. Now that is very cool. But what if we don't present the data? Because if you notice here, we have data as well that is being projected through this app books view, which is the book list. And if you check our component, our books component, you're going to see a list of books, like about 4 items list of books, which we also pass to our app books view. Now, what happens if we do not want to project this book list? What if we want the display to be the default book list? So let's take this out. We take this out as well, and then we just want to use the default values. You notice, so we have default values: the young shall grow, without the silver spoon, Lara, the sugar girl. So we are able to set default template first, and then we are able to set default data as well. And how does that work? Now, if you look at our template that we had before, we created something like this. We said let books. And what this do, what the let command or what the let syntax help us do is that it helps us to declare like a variable. And then we can then loop through this variable. So whenever you pass anything to a template, whenever you pass the data to our template, it's going to look at this variable. It's going to equate to this variable, and then you can then use the variable across your template. And that's what happens. So if you check this, we have books, but then what we are actually passing to it is a book list. But because you have made it a variable, it's going to take in whatever you pass into it and then as your book list. And if you go to our books view component, let me take this out. If you go to our book view component, you see that we have a contest. This is a short form of doing this. We have a contest. And what this means is that if there is no value that is being passed to this our template, if there's no value that has been passed, what we are going to do is that we are going to make use of this implicit value. That is the reason why when we were trying to, let me try to divide it into two and then do this. Good. So if you notice very well, where when we removed this value totally, we were still able to display a contest, which is the book list, which is the default value that we have set. So this way, we are able to display a default template when there's no template passed, and then we are able to also display a default data when there's no data passed. And I know that is cool, but sometimes after learning this kind of concept, you might wonder, where do I actually need this kind of a thing, or where would I actually implement this to keep my code clean or make my components highly reusable? And a very good use case is what we try to do here. Say we have like a list of books. You can, if you want, have different views for your data. Example is with a table. You can say you want to dynamically change the view of your table. Maybe when you can set a host listing out to say whenever you are in the smaller screen, just use the use the card view. Whenever you are in a larger screen, then you can use the table view. So you can use that NG template to do that kind of dynamicity to change different type of view depending on the use case. I hope that makes sense. So I think that is basically all for now. And with that, I want to say thank you for paying attention. And I really hope you enjoyed the presentation.
Yeah, thank you for making those examples. It was helpful to see the default value and how you can configure it. The various ways you could basically have dynamic components. That was super helpful. Yeah, Xiao, you're late.
Thank you.
Luckily, Nkita recorded it.
Yes, so
it was really
I will
cool.
be posting the recording. Catch up on this. And yeah, those of y'all who joined me, welcome again. We just had Valentine give us, and I'm sure Valentine will also be sharing the slides with us. So yeah, I can still go through it, but it was fun. It was really nice. Does anyone have any questions? Because you explained it so well, Valentine. This is, it's like the little things that no one really takes the time to learn and doesn't appreciate how powerful they can be. And it's things like these. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, these things are really cool. Actually, I learned this stuff from Alex Rickabaugh and Sonder, and then taught it to Valentine. And it's just really, because I was using Angular for a long time without using any of this functionality. Like I knew ngIf and I knew ng4. That was about it for a while, you know. But I was having a lot of fun. Like that'll get you pretty far. But when you learn how to do this kind of stuff, it just makes it for a lot cleaner code. And so that was really cool. Thank you for putting that together. And you are going to share your slides, right, Val? I see Monique. Sonder, tell Monique we said hello. I love her. That was awesome, Val.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna just stop the recording so you can just hang out. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'm sure everyone's excited for Alex's session after this.
Oh yeah, right after this, Alex Rickabaugh coming up in
First
16
time has this
minutes.
long, like toilet paper roll full of questions for Alex.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be so much fun. Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. You don't want to miss that.
Yeah. All right, Valentine. I'm so glad that you could join us today with your super awesome talk. Mm.
Thanks, Val. Thanks, Ankita.
Thank you. I think everyone would need a breather to join in Alex's session right after this, so we can we don't have to wait the whole time.
All right.
Wait, see you guys there.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi. Thanks, Valentine.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. See you in 15 minutes.